Hello YouTube. It's been a couple of weeks since I've last done a video. I want to thank everyone out there in terms of subscribing to my videos, liking them, etc. There have been quite a few people who have contacted me via YouTube and Facebook, either asking questions, or some people have actually commissioned designs and things like that, consultations. And some people have actually commissioned solar installations. So, if you're interested, do not be shy. My email address is on all the links. Just get in touch, no problem. But what I thought I'd do today, rather than another installation video, etc., today I thought would have a quick chat about batteries. Batteries. I promised in one of my earlier videos that I was going to talk at length at some stage about batteries, battery care, and how to look after them. The theme of today, the things to do to prolong the life of your battery bank, to ensure that your batteries serve you for many, many years. Because when things are done properly, these batteries should actually be lasting 5 years, as opposed to the usual, 1, 2 years, 3 years that we experience. A friend of mine was at a barbecue, and he was insistent that batteries only lasted for 18 months. And I said, no, where did you get this information? If done properly, if you use them properly the way they're supposed to be used, they last a lot longer than that. So I thought I'll do this video today about the top 10 things to do to ensure that your batteries last. So I hope you enjoy it. Number 1, mistaken identity. Car batteries, truck batteries, these are not meant for use on your home inverters or solar or whatever. These batteries are designed to produce a massive amount of power in a short space of time. As you start your car, that cranking of your engine, of the starter, is, the amount of power that consumes is phenomenal, and these batteries are designed to produce that power for a few seconds, and that's it. And then they recover. As your engine idles, they recover. And if you start the car over and over and over again, and the engine doesn't start, as you know, by the time you're starting it for the 10th time, the battery is already dying. So car batteries and truck batteries, they are the wrong battery to use on your solar system. It is like you're going in the wrong direction. What you need are deep cycle batteries, and the difference is that deep cycle batteries have thicker internal plates, wider internal plates, to allow for more chemicals to move back and forth, and therefore it produces power in a more gradual way, and it can produce power over a sustained period of time, and as it discharges, it actually is more forgiving, because as it discharges and gets low, it can recover back up again a lot better than the car or truck batteries, which are just designed for quick power, a few seconds, and that's it. So don't mix the two. If you have a home solar system or inverter system or wind system, you have to use deep cycle batteries, either the flooded type or the sealed type or AGM or gel or VR. It doesn't matter, as long as they are deep cycle batteries. Too few batteries. This is the most common mistake that we make, and to be honest, a large part component of this is financial resources. Most people who use 2 batteries at home in their 24-volt systems, actually, if you do their energy survey, you find out they probably need 6 batteries. People who are using 4 batteries probably need 12, if you do the actual consumption data. So this is the most commonly found problem with batteries in our environment, which is that you don't have enough of them. And if you don't have enough batteries, what happens is you're going to be draining them too much. And this is what batteries do not want. So it's good to, as I always say, do an energy survey, do your daytime, nighttime splits, do your reserve estimation of how much power you need overnight, and watch your batteries. If you consistently are waking up below half tank, that means you really need more batteries in your bank. That's a rough measure. If you're waking up below half tank, you probably should add batteries. And half tank for a 12-volt system is 12 volts. For a 24-volt system is 24 volts. For a 48-volt system is 48 volts. These voltages are usually named after the halfway point for that system. So if you wake up below half tank, you need more batteries, and that's the biggest error that we find in our environment. Mixing and matching. Either mixing old batteries with new batteries or mixing different brands of batteries together. Mixing and matching is a recipe for disaster. Batteries have a signature life cycle. So the best, most ideal situation is to have your batteries, the same brand, the same batch, the same source, both at the same time, the same rough date of manufacturing, all as a uniform group. That is the best scenario. But when you have some old batteries and then you mix them with some brand new ones, basically what you're doing is you're handcuffing Usain Bolt to myself and telling us to run 100 meters. It's either I will slow Usain Bolt down, because he's the new battery, or he'll kill me of a heart attack, because I'm the old tired battery. So it's not a good idea. Or you're mixing and matching different kinds of batteries, slim ones mixed with some flat ones mixed with, not a good idea at all. Not a good idea. So mixing and matching, no good. Diving too deep. When you're discharging your batteries on a regular basis too deeply, like we said before, and you're consistently below half level, then you are going to run those batteries to their death a lot quicker than they would have lasted you. Most battery manufacturers actually have specification sheets that will show you how many cycles, because when you discharge and recharge, that is a cycle. Every time you drain your battery and then you recharge it back up, that is regarded as a cycle. So the deeper the cycle, so going from 100% full to 50% is better than going from 100% full to 20%, as in draining 80% of it. Okay, so the deeper you discharge your batteries, the earlier they will die. So you always have to make sure that your batteries, you take all precautions. Inverters, you can set your inverter to raise an alarm every time your battery is going below a certain depth of discharge. So depth of discharge is a very, very, very important thing. 30% depth of discharge is always better than 50%, is always better than 70% depth of discharge. And again, look at the spec sheet of the battery you have. All of them are available on the internet. Just look at the brand of your battery and check the specification sheet, and they'll tell you how many cycles you should expect based on how deeply you're discharging your battery on a regular basis. I mean, once in a while, we can't help it, you will discharge the battery more than you plan to or a bit more than usual, but we're talking of the usual regular depth of discharge. Or even worse, to discharge your battery completely till they are flat and dead. That, by the time we've done that a few times, that battery, because the battery finds it hard to recover from these kinds of extreme levels of drain, it's very bad prognosis for your battery. The next thing to guard against is undercharging. A lot of people don't realize this, but a lot of batteries are left in a state of undercharge, either because you don't have power for long enough or you can't turn on your generator for long enough. You always have to make sure that your batteries are charged fully to the top, 100%. It's called floating, as often as you can manage it, because this ensures it guards against sort of permanent sulfation that happens to batteries when they're left in a state of undercharge. So you always have to make sure that your batteries are charged properly. Also check the rate at which it's being charged. Based on your bank, or your battery bank, you need to know how many amp hours your battery bank is. Is it 200 amp hour, 100 amp hour, 400 amp hour? If you know the amp hour of your battery bank, then you should really be charging at a rate of 20%. But check again the spec sheet of your battery that you use, because some people would say 15%, some will say 25%, but most will say 20%. So if you have a 400 amp hour battery bank, you should really be charging at about 80 amps. This is what you should aim for. 20% of the amp hour of your battery bank should be the rate of charge of your batteries. Overcharging. Very dangerous for a battery, either by too high a rate of charging. So you ideally should be charging at 20 amps, you're charging at 40 amps because you're in a hurry. What you do is you're just boiling your batteries unnecessarily, and you can hear your batteries gassing and bubbling when so overcharge is not good, or actually continuing to charge beyond which the manufacturers have said is a good place to stop. So for example, if you have a 48 volt system, most people would suggest that you charge your batteries up to 54 volts thereabouts. But by the time you start going up 56, 58, 59, whatever, you will spoil your batteries. No doubt. You will irreversibly damage your batteries. They will not live long at all. So overcharging is both the rate of charge being too high or the eventual voltage being too high. You need to guard against that. But to be fair, a lot of the more modern chargers, both solar charge controllers and the grid chargers, are intelligent chargers, so they know when to stop. And you can set them if you want, etc. So that's something to watch out for. Inequality. Now, what I mean by this is that you have a battery bank, and the batteries are connected to each other. So you have 4 in a series, and they're connected to each other. And then you have the cables going to your inverter, to the charger, coming from this end and that end. What it invariably means is that the batteries at the end get charged first before charge gets to the batteries in the middle, which really should not be an issue on a 1 or 2 day basis. But on a day-to-day basis, of 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 3 years and going, especially when we're talking about multiple strings of batteries, so that there are strings at the top, in the middle, at the bottom, and the cables going to the inverter or chargers are going from the extreme ends. So all the batteries in the middle do not get the same level of nourishment in a timely fashion as the batteries at the end. So this is particularly a problem for when you have multiple strings of batteries connected together. What you find is that there may exist slight differences in the voltages of all these batteries. Also, each single battery, they are identical, yes, because remember we talked about having identical batteries, but the internal resistance of each battery can never be the same. There are minor differences because it's not a photocopy, you know. So the internal resistance of each battery is slightly different, which means that each battery, based on the charge that's coming in, will find itself resting at a certain voltage. You know, it deems as being full. So you might then have one battery being 13.7, this one is 13.5, that one is 12.4, and this is 13.6. So you already can see some imbalance going on in there. And this is typically something that happens over years and years and years and years. So the way to guard against this, and anybody that deals with batteries will tell you, the good old-fashioned way is every once in a while, like every 6 months, you get all your batteries, you disentangle it and you move them around, almost like shuffling cards. Another thing you can do, another measure, is to give your batteries an equalization charge. And the way this works is that most battery systems generally specify a certain voltage at which you are supposed to charge them on a regular basis to full. For example, a 12-volt system is generally recommended that you charge this up to 13.5 volts. So if you use a 24-volt system, you multiply that by 2, it's 27. If it's a 48-volt system, you multiply by 4, that's a 54-volt charge. So these voltages are generally regarded as being voltages at which point the batteries are full. Now, for an equalization charge, what we are doing instead is that we are ramping up the voltage beyond 100%. And you have to really check your battery specification to find what voltage is recommended for equalization. For example, flooded Trojan batteries, it is generally recommended to go all the way up beyond 13.5 all the way up to 16.2 as an equalization charge. There are other battery systems that would say go only to 14.5, you know, but the principle is that you are charging your battery higher than normal, beyond 100%, and you leave it there for a few hours, and that exceedingly higher than normal pressure, what it does is that it equalizes all the batteries. So the batteries that are chronically with lower voltages have a chance to pick up on the ones, so an equalization charge is very important, specifically for people who have flooded batteries. We'll talk about that in a minute. If you have sealed batteries, equalization charges are not usually recommended. You're probably better off shuffling your batteries or using a new gadget, one of which I'm going to do a video on very soon, called battery equalizers. And what those battery equalizers do, it's an electronic gadget. You can see one of my videos, I think video 30 or video 31, where I talked about them. An electronic gadget, and it does the equalization for you electronically every second, just to make sure that all the batteries are the same voltage. So if this is slightly low, you'll take from this and put it there, and it does that equalization job very well. So equalization is a very, very important thing, because what it guards against is one battery failing prematurely and dragging the rest of the battery bank with it. The next issue to discuss, a measure to take to guard against your batteries dying prematurely, and this is a bugbear of mine. It's about the cables. Cabling. In our environment, in our part of the world, what I see all the time are people using 16mm cables for batteries. Even if they are 48-volt systems, it doesn't excuse the kinds of things that people use. Now, even if you don't have a fire, which is quite possible if you are using too thin cables, and if you check a lot of these cables, when you check them, you can see that they've been hot, the insulation is slightly melted somewhere. So even if you don't have a fire, God forbid, but what you're doing is you're killing your batteries, because I guaranteed that thin cables will get warm. They're more likely to get warm. with the currents that you will be using than thicker cables. By becoming warm, which is dangerous. But by getting warm, what happens is that the thin cable, already with a high internal resistance because it's thin, is now getting warm. So the resistance gets higher. So internal resistance gets higher. What does that cause? More heat. And more heat does what? Increases the internal resistance. And it's just a vicious spiral. So that is a very dangerous thing. The other thing that it does is that if your batteries are chronically, it's like having a big community with a tiny road supplying them. You don't know how you're going to have traffic. So you will have problems, because if your batteries are chronically served by thin cables all the time, apart from the dangerous issues, it also is something that will contribute to unequal batteries, etc., which we talked about earlier. So if you can, as much as possible, ensure that you use good enough cables, thick cables. I never go below 35mm cable, and that's for 48-volt systems. I would never entertain anything lower than 35mm. Routinely, I install 50mm cables all the way up to 70mm square cables for battery systems. That's what we use routinely. So think about these very carefully. It's important to prolong your battery life, but also to keep your home safe. Your children are there, these things electrical fires can start anytime. Cabling is very important. While we're on the point of cabling, make sure that it is fused. So between your battery and that inverter or charger or whatever, there has to be a fuse. Either a fuse or a breaker or whatever, and the fuse has to be the amperage recommended. Please make sure that not only you have adequate cables, but the cable is fused. Batteries are like human beings, actually, in one way. The kind of temperatures that they love to exist in are the same kind of temperatures that we love to exist in. So not too hot, not too cold. So if you have a battery bank, it's nice to put them in a place where the temperature that they find themselves is usually around and about the same temperature that you find yourself in the house. So if you live in an extremely cold country with snow outside, which thankfully we don't have that problem in Africa, you might need to put the batteries in a place where they're insulated so they're not too cold. If you live in Africa, for example, don't put your batteries in the hot sun or in a place where the heat is going to kill them, and lock them up in some hot room. Always ensure, please, that your batteries are nice and warm room temperature, that you yourself exist in. As well as the fact that make sure that your batteries can breathe, because even if you have sealed batteries, they still emit gases. They might be tiny, but they have valves in them. They still emit gases. So if you are collecting all these gases in an enclosed container, you are creating a perfect recipe for an explosion. So always make sure that your batteries, if they are in sort of containerized in a box, make sure that the box is vented, that there's vents for both sides for air to pass through. And if they're in a room, make sure the room has windows, etc. Because, especially if you have flooded batteries, oh my God, gases all the time. So it's something to watch out for. But yes, the temperature of your batteries, very important. And your chargers and inverters often now come with temperature sensors. If it comes with it, use it, because the performance will be even much more enhanced, because it knows what temperature the battery is at, and so it knows how to charge it better. So finally, for those that use flooded batteries, I don't use flooded batteries myself because it's too much work. They are more robust. They are more robust. They will last longer. Whereas you're looking for your sealed batteries to last 5 years if you are very lucky. Flooded batteries, you're looking for them to last 7 to 10 years if you're very, very lucky. So they last a bit longer. And that is because you can open them and put distilled water in them. So because one of the reasons batteries fail is dehydration. You lose your water. It's just natural, that's life. Either by overcharging and your waters evaporate, or just by normal evaporation. That's life. But with flooded batteries, you can actually open them and add distilled water to them. So the plates are bigger, they're more durable, and they last longer. But I don't use them because what they demand is a lot of maintenance. So you have to clean them, you have to check the specific gravity of them with a proper hygrometer, you have to top them up with distilled water, you have to clean the tops with baking soda because it's acidic, so to neutralize it, to avoid corrosion. You have to make sure they are vented because the gas quite readily. So they need to be very well vented, and all these things. And just think, So me personally, for me, I use sealed batteries. They're there, you just forget them. As long as you look after them well. My current batteries I've now been using, this is 3.5 years. My four batteries that I have on my heavy circuits, it's 3.5 years and it's still pumping strong, no problem. So, if you use flooded batteries, you have to take those extra precautions because if you don't, they will start corroding. If they start corroding the terminals, they will die. You won't enjoy them. Okay, and they are expensive. But let's face it, batteries are expensive. Batteries are not cheap. So I hope that was helpful. It's a breeze through. The sort of top 10 things you need to do to prolong your battery life. These are the main culprits, as far as I'm concerned, in systems in our part of the world, and that we need to rectify. So, until the next video, keep liking them, keep subscribing, and I think what I'll do is I'll put up some more battery videos. I think that'll be good. Yes, it'll be good. I might throw up some more installation videos, but I'm just bored of installation videos. You guys have seen, But if I see any particularly unique installation videos, there's one we're doing soon on a hospital. So things like that, just to add perspective to these things. So yes, please like them, subscribe. See you on the next video. Thank you.